Cody. Holy cow, Cody, you got a lot of sound coming in the mic there tonight.
I moved in the chair, man. What do you expect?
I guess that's just kind of the way that
Look,
it
I
goes.
don't have a quiet chair, okay? We gotta make do.
That's
Look,
right.
when you're 250 pounds in a chair, they don't like you. Deal with it.
No, I get that. I get it. Trust me, I get it. Well, welcome back. I hope you're feeling a little bit better.
Yeah, I've been better. Still a little nasally, so I'm sure you can hear that. But
You actually sound a lot better than you
if you hear a
sounded
bunch
the
of
other day.
sniffling during the show, don't worry. Dude, the other day I felt like a train ran over my butt. Damn sinuses suck.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely no fun. That's
That's
for
all I'm
sure.
saying. Sinuses suck. Anyways, well, we finally got a full weekend. Well, yeah, we'll say full weekend of SEC football. Only one postponed game. Besides that, I think it was a fairly good weekend. Some really good matchups, some really good show or games to watch in conference and out of conference too. Kind of see what other teams are doing. So I think it's overall a good weekend for some college football.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And like you said, SEC just about had a full slate. Um, so that's always a good side as far as that goes, at least. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through your top 25, kind of like normal. We'll start shooting through the SEC games, catch up on a couple of the ones outside of the SEC, and then basically go through our picks. Mad Dog didn't get his picks in before the show, and I never did put them up visually, but I did get his picks, so I'm going to throw those on there. We're going to take a look at the college football playoff stuff that's about to come out, because on Tuesday is the selection for the first rankings, which we'll get to. Um, and then that's about going to wrap it up for this one. And we'll see. Y'all keep an eye on our socials. We may or may not come in and do a Tuesday. I'm not 100%. We'll kind of see how that turns out as far as that goes. But Cody, you got any news for us?
I really think the biggest news that I think you touched on it last week a little bit was the allegations coming out of LSU. Last I saw, there's actually 9 LSU players involved in the accusations from the. We don't know exactly what. I know they're saying a sexual misconduct between a couple of players, and one player and his girlfriend, and a player and a couple of the. I think it was some of the female athletes there at LSU. Really don't know what's going on there. They're saying that there's been coaches and administrations that have been involved and who knew about it, but they're just hiding it, covering it up. So I don't know if this is the case like it was with, I think it was Jameson Winston back a couple years ago when he had the accusations against him at FSU.
Yeah, maybe. Like you said, there's a lot into it as far as
False evidence.
yeah, like you said, there's a lot that's coming into it as far as some of the information, and we'll dive deeper into it as more breaks. There's not a, I mean, there's stuff out there, but I hate to bring any kind of content to you guys if we don't have a lot of the information at hand. So we might wait before until we get a little bit more of that information out before we talk too much on it.
The only thing I've been able to see so far, I was trying to look at it up earlier. The only thing that is able actually coming out isn't from the college. They haven't really released any type of information on it. This is coming from USA Today and the police reports that are being uh, put in. So nothing actually coming from LSU as of right now. No full statement saying what's going on, but hopefully, excuse me, hopefully over the next couple of weeks they'll kind of come out and say for surely what's going on there. But I really think besides that, the only other real big news is, or big topic, I guess you can say, is the coaching hot seat. Um, because there's several coaches in college football. There's a few in the SEC that are on a hot seat, and it's not looking pretty. One of them that we talked about a couple weeks ago was the Vanderbilt head coach and Derek Mason. You're 0-6 on the year now. You got to do something, or I think LSU's going to be fine, or Vanderbilt's going to find them a new head coach. I know we talked a little bit about that earlier, but I think at some point LSU or Vanderbilt's got to say, look, either make improvements or we're going to pay you out.
Yeah, and I can definitely see it. I can definitely see it being the latter, just because, I mean, 0-6 this year. He hadn't had all that great of seasons in the past few years, anyways. So it's kind of one of those things to me. It's either time to make a change or it's just time to make a change. That's all there is to it. I mean, even Kentucky, they made a change and things got better there for a little while. It's not a great year, but things did at least get better. So
Look at Arkansas.
oh yeah,
Arkansas is a perfect example of this. They got rid of Brett Bielema, brought in Sam Pittman, and look at Arkansas.
yeah.
I mean, shoot, Arkansas is. Let me go to their record real quick. They're 3-5 on the year, but those 3 wins they have, or those 5 losses they have been close losses.
Yeah, they really could be 5-3 at this point. You could flip.
They could be. Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, I mean, there's several games that they got that went the opposite way, and one of them was the one last night, which we will get to that in a few minutes. But I think without further ado, let's tell that topic real quick about the hot seat.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 other coaches I can see that are kind of on the hot seat. I think one of them's coming off of it a little bit, but not really. Actually, the 2 played this past weekend. Jerry Pruitt and Gus Malzahn. I think Gus is finally. He's on a warm seat. It's not a hot seat yet, but it's warm.
Yeah, no, I can agree with
that. If that makes any sense to you.
I told a good friend of mine, I said that if Tennessee was to beat Auburn this weekend, I think Gus is gone. Luckily for Auburn, which we'll get to, they did beat Tennessee. But I had a feeling, I still think it's tough. I mean, he's had up and down years. He's beat Alabama, which makes it good. But, I mean, you're going to come to this year. They're not going to beat Alabama this weekend. I mean, knock on wood for your sake, but I don't see it happening. Auburn's not nearly as good, and Alabama is completely different this season as far as just being a powerhouse, knockdown on that offensive side, just like you saw LSU last year. So I think it's going to be really, really tough for Auburn to even give them much of a shot. So what do you do at the end of the season? Do you reevaluate and say, okay, are we going to be okay being 10-2 in 2018 and turn around, and just not be that great a couple years later and things starting to track downward, or is it time to make a change there as well?
Yeah, I think the athletic director and all them at Auburn kind of need to have a meeting and figure out what they're going to do there. As far as, do you do the payout for Gus Malzahn and say, you know what, it's been that right, but we need somebody who's going to make improvements to this program and take us further than just a winning season. We need championships. And your last one, not to knock on Auburn, but their last one was because of one player. And we all know it. If you take Cam Newton off that team, they do not win national championship.
Very well possible, but I tell you what, let's not harp too much on the past. And I tell you what, why don't we go ahead and start jumping into the future here, and let's look at the rankings, the top 25 that just came out. Obviously, there's a big one that's coming out on Tuesday when the college football playoff drops. But Cody, do you mind running through that top 25 for us?
The one that matters.
That's right.
Yeah, your top eight do not change one bit. I think out of your top 8, 2 teams had a bye week. Well, one had a bye week, one had a postponed game. And there's actually something funny about that game too. So I'll touch on that here in a few minutes. But sitting top of your top 25 AP poll for the week of November 22nd, you have number one ranking Alabama holding the spot, getting all 62 first place votes. Thanksgiving week, Turkey week, at least for our listeners in the country. So I'm going to make sure we do give them that. Continue on down. You have number 2, Notre Dame, with their win over Clemson, sitting at number 2. Ohio State sitting pretty at 3. Clemson sitting at number 4 spot. Texas A&M sitting at number 5. Also had a postponed game this weekend. Florida continues on, holding that number 6 spot down, just on the outside looking in. Cincinnati sitting number 7, still undefeated. BYU right behind them, undefeated also. This is where it gets a little interesting. Oregon, with their win, moves up 2 spots to number 9. Miami, with their win, jumps up 2 spots to number 10. Northwestern, with their upset win, jump up 8 spots to number 11. Indiana, with their loss to Ohio State, drop their win over Kentucky. Do not move at number 13. Number 14, you have Oklahoma jumping up 4 spots. Iowa State also jumping up 2 spots to number 15. Coastal Carolina, even though they are undefeated, fall 1 spot. Marshall, again, undefeated team, sitting there falling. I do think that's because of the conference they're in. They're not in the Power 5, so they're going to kind of get harped on a little bit because of that. But nonetheless, Wisconsin, with their loss, falls 8 spots. UCS, with their win, move up 1. Texas, with their win, moves up 2 spots to number 20. USC is 19th. Oklahoma State, I think they lost to Oklahoma, if I remember correctly. They fall 7 spots to 21st. Auburn, with their victory, jump up 1 spot to 22nd. The old Louisiana Raging Cajuns jump up 1 spot to 23rd, 7-1 on the season. Tulsa, jumping up 1 spot to 24, and jumping into the top 25 for the first week, or for the first time I know this year and probably in a few years. Number 25, North Carolina, sitting 6-2.
Well, you do have to think, as far as North Carolina goes, they were in the top. They were actually, I think, ranked 5th earlier in the season. They were actually in the top 10 for a little while. They've been in the top 25 this season and fell out after those couple of losses. Yeah, they were actually all the way up in like the 5 spot before they fell after losing a couple. But nonetheless, is there anything that really sticks out to you there? I'm gonna throw this up on the screen for you guys real quick, for you guys watching on YouTube or where have you. This is it. Tuesday, November 24th. We're 2 days away from the first playoff ranking that's going to be released at 7 o'clock there on ESPN. Is there anything that jumps out to you? Because the thing that jumps out to me when this date comes is I want to see where number 7 Cincinnati and where number 8 BYU stand, both being undefeated.
Okay. So, out of those I'll say those top 10 teams. Because you do have Oregon, who's undefeated. Yes, they didn't start till 2 weeks ago. But nonetheless, they are undefeated, giving their props. But you have the 7-1 Miami, whose only loss so far is to the number 14 Clemson, who did lose to the number 2 team Notre Dame. And we're all thinking that you'll see a rematch between that number 4 and number 2 team coming into the ACC schedule. But I think those top 8 teams, or top 10 teams, I think Miami will stay number 10. Oregon will stay, or Oregon may be 10, Miami may be 9th, just because of it being, they got a better resume as of right now. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Cincinnati and BYU, I think you can make a case for them sitting 5-6 over A&M and Florida. The reason I say that is both of Florida and A&M's losses were at the beginning of the season, whereas Cincinnati, who has, I don't think they've ever been 8-0 on the year, on a season ever. And I think BYU's been a while since they've been undefeated, especially 9-0. You can make a case saying, look, these teams have proven they've been playing all year, and they have proven they, they haven't played a lot of, out of conference teams, but BYU hasn't run the conference, but nonetheless, they're undefeated. You have to give them credit for that undefeated. And the reason I say that, do it now. Do it during this first release of the schedule. Because next week, it's whatever. You can change it. Next week, you can put Clemson at number 1. Like, you can change it however you want to next week. Because after this week, you got some big games this coming up weekend. At the same time, you got some matchups to kind of keep an eye on. And I think that then you can make a better judgment. But as of right now, I say give Cincinnati and BYU credit for having an 8-0 and 9-0 record. Even Coastal Carolina and Marshall, who are sitting 8-0 and 7-0. Put them above a 6-2 Oklahoma. No offense to you, buddy. Put them over 5-2 Georgia. Because Georgia's 2 losses are not impressive.
I get it.
They gave up after the halftime against Bama, and then they just didn't. They were injured and they kind of just felt the wagon against Florida. And I think at that point you kind of say, look, your 2 losses are to 2 of your top-ranked teams in your conference, but at the same time, Florida's losses to A&M. A&M's losses to Alabama. You have to look at it and say, look, okay, there's a bunch of mishmax going on around here. We got to give credit to these teams who are undefeated.
Yeah. No, I can agree with that, and I can attest, for it. I get
that's
that.
my take.
I will say that I do
put them in the top 5.
Yeah, I can get that. Well, I'll tell you this. I was looking at some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier. I did look that last time BYU actually had an undefeated season was 1984, where they went 13-0. Looking at like the latest as far as when they had a really good winning record, 2011 with Bronco Mendenhall, they were 10-3, and then even in kind of the mid 2000s there, look at 09, late 2000, they were right before 2010 anyway, 11-2, 10-3 the year before that, 11-2 consecutive seasons in 06 and 07. So they've been pretty good. Early 2000s they were 12-1, not too bad. And the last time I think that Cincinnati, as far as having a really good season, was 09. I think they also finished maybe 10-2, something like that, or no, it was 12-1, and they lost I think in the Sugar Bowl. I think it was Sugar Bowl to Florida. But so they've had a couple of really good seasons. But I agree. There's a lot of questions are going to be answered.
It's been a while.
Yeah, a lot of
give these teams credits.
I agree, but a lot of that's going to come down to. We're going to find out a lot of it Tuesday, what they think. I do think that even though they're undefeated, and I think their credit comes being there at 7-8, because Texas A&M, their only loss, like you said, beginning of the season to a major, obviously the number 1 team in the country in Alabama. Florida's lost to A&M, the team right above them, who's only lost to Alabama, and they've looked really good with the Heisman frontrunner there at quarterback. So, these top 6, you can kind of interchange some of them, but from there on, it's a little bit tougher. And me personally, I would put Northwestern above Miami, just because that win over Wisconsin was a true win. It wasn't. Yeah. They didn't necessarily pound them, but that defense choked them out, and Wisconsin just couldn't move the ball. They scored the one time and just couldn't do it again. But nonetheless, let's try not to harp too much on a lot of these other teams you guys might not care too much about, as considering this is SEC talk. So let's jump right into it. Let's jump into that Kentucky and Alabama game real quick. Cody, you want to start us off with it?
Yeah, let me get it pulled up real quick. Trying to remember what's going on my computer. I got stuff pulling up all over the place. Anyways, Alabama took on unranked Kentucky 3-5 on the year. Kentucky got a field goal in the first quarter. Bama struggled offensively and defensively in that first half, in that first quarter. And after that, Alabama was Alabama. Ended up shutting them out the rest of the game, scoring 21 in the second, 21 in the third, and 14 in the fourth. I felt bad for Kentucky and Mark Stoops because at some point you're like, look, Alabama's sitting there in the fourth quarter and we're watching it. It's 4th and 5. You don't want to punt because, it's no point to punt when you're at the 20-yard line. That's a wasted play. Yeah. They're going to come right back there. You don't want to kick a field goal because that's guaranteed 3 points. Run a little run play. If they stop you, they stop you. Oh, well. They didn't stop them. Alabama scores. That's not on Alabama and Nick Saban. He gave Kentucky the chance to stop them, and they couldn't do it. Kentucky just – if you compare the Kentucky team that played Bama to the one that played Georgia, they look like two totally different teams.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. And, Alabama, they did what Alabama's been doing. They absolutely just choked the team out, and being that in Kentucky. The thing that kind of popped off the screen to me was, look at the yardage here. Mac Jones only throws for 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, one mistake on the night in the interception. Bryce Young, 2 for 2, 53 yards. He had his first touchdown as an Alabamian there. And then, you ran the ball for 226 yards. So
Smith.
There you go, which we'll get to in a minute. But, it just wasn't as many yards as I really anticipated seeing kind of put up there. Offensively, at the end of the day, Alabama still puts up 509 yards offensively, and Kentucky only puts up, 179? So, total yards, if I'm looking the total, 509 to 179. It just looked like, you're so used to seeing Alabama run it or really throw it down everybody's throat now is what it's turned to. And it was kind of even keel. Y'all ran the ball plenty and put up a heap load of yards on the ground, 283, in the air, but 226 on the ground, 509 yards. I guess I anticipated Mac Jones to throw for 500 yards in this one and still run for probably the same, but I don't know, it was a different kind of game. And to be honest, I was watching and it was tight in the first quarter. I was like, well, this is a little abnormal. About midway through the second quarter, though, Alabama does what Alabama does, and it's 28-3 going to the half, and then third quarter, same thing continued. I was like, well, this one's out of the bag, so I kind of faded off to another game there.
Yeah. Well, after Kentucky had that bad snap that went over the quarter or the holder's head, that was it. That was the nail in the coffin, I think, for Kentucky. Because they're like, all right, then. That seals our fate. And then you had the punt or the field goal that they missed. So, there's 6 points right there that they could have had. And I think that gives them a little bit more of a boost of confidence. But, when you get to the point where they're throwing in a freshman quarterback and they're down 50 points, what does that tell your team?
That's true.
Like, look, guys, we don't know what else to do. Here, hope for the best.
That's true. Well, I tell you what, go ahead and tell everybody about Devontae Smith there.
Yeah, so I was going to touch on this real quick. If you watched the game or if you heard about it, Devontae Smith went 9 receptions on 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. Those 2 touchdowns actually led. What the heck? Sorry. Actually led to him breaking the SEC record for touchdowns in a career. Receiving touchdowns in a career gets him 33 on his career. That breaks a 25-year or 25-year or 20-something year record that's been standing from a Florida receiver, Chris Doering. So, congratulations to Devontae Smith for setting the school record and the SEC record for Alabama and himself, breaking the SEC record. And there's still a lot of football left to play, so It's looking good.
He's looking to set that bar mighty high. Yeah, like you say, congrats to him for sure. You got anything else on the Kentucky-Alabama game? We've got quite a
Oh
few
yeah.
games to run through, and we're already about halfway through the time that we want to take here.
Yeah, I mean, you had a couple of interceptions. Matt Jones threw an interception that was returned for 25 yards. Not Joey Gatewood. Um, well, I
Terry
just lost
Wilson.
his name. What? Yeah. Threw an interception that was picked off by Jordan Battle, returned 45 yards for a touchdown. So
What an
you had
awesome
both teams
name,
threw an interception,
Battle.
made a mistake, but Alabama was just all around. That's like an intimidating name to me. I think it would be. I'm changing my name. That's it, guys. It's official. But besides that, yeah, Alabama pulls out the win there, 63-6 or 63-3. And rolling on down. Now they get to turn and focus on the big one this weekend, the Iron Bowl.
Yep, looking forward to checking that one out. Like I said, I think Alabama will roll in it,
But
but we'll keep an eye on it one way or another. Jumping
yeah.
into the Florida-Vandy game here. Florida gets a big win, 38-17 over Vandy. Vandy still completely defeated on the season. I'm actually somewhat surprised that Florida gave up that many points, but Kyle Trask continues to roll, 26 for 35, 383 yards, 3 touchdowns, averaging 10 and almost 11 yards a pass, QBR at 94. Looked really good. They rushed for 173 yards, so Florida could pretty much do whatever they wanted in this one. And but I will say there for a little while, kind of in the first quarter, it seemed to be a little bit tighter as far as Vandy decided they wanted to make a bit of a game.
First half.
Yeah, 10-7, or yeah, Vandy's up 10-7 at the half, and then 17-10 going to the half. Excuse me, 10-7, Vandy's leading at the end of the first quarter.
That's what I'm saying.
17-10 at the half.
There you go. Yeah, that one kind of shocked me. I was like, Florida, you gonna let Vandy play with you?
Mm-hmm.
And then, they went up, what, 30 or 20 something, 21, 31.
Yeah, it was
10, and then Vandy scored again, made it 17-31. I was like, all right now, better watch it, Florida. Vandy don't do something weird.
And they could have. I mean, they were two touchdowns away from making it a lot tighter going into the fourth quarter.
Oh yeah. Which now, with this camera here, this tells me that either Vandy's really improving, or there's something going on over in Florida.
I think it all boils down to Florida's defense. Florida's offense is powerhouse. It's just that defense. There's holes, and it's the scary. I say the scary thing. It's not scary for me, but I think that when Florida has to meet Alabama in the SEC championship coming up in a month, that defense is going to be exposed because those holes, you got to plug those holes when you have to play a powerhouse like Alabama.
Yeah, and I will say too that I was talking with my fire chief earlier that the biggest difference between the two offenses is Florida's a dangerous offense. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking anything away from Florida. They're a dangerous offense, but only through the air. That's their only dangerous is when they're throwing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
If you force them to run, they're going to make mistakes. I mean, they put the ball on turf, running the ball more times this year than they have through the air.
Yeah.
Like for fumbles go.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's why they rely so much heavy on Kyle Trask, to throw the ball. But Alabama's defense has gotten better through the year. Our secondary is getting better, and you'll find out against Auburn how much improvement they've made this year, and to see what to look forward to. But yeah, like you mentioned, Florida went into Vanderbilt, takes the win there, 38-17. Kyle Trask going pretty good. Damian Pierce, 11 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown. And Kadarius Toney, 6 receptions for 107 yards. Kyle Pitts is still out in Florida. I haven't heard an update on him yet. really need to do some research on that and
Well,
see
the last I
what
heard
his
on that
status
was
is.
that big hit that Lewis Seen put on him from Georgia. I think it may have broke the kid's nose because he actually, I believe, had to have nose surgery.
Yeah, that's my. Like I said, I saw my fire chief earlier. And he said his son has a bunch of outlets he follows, and he said something about he had surgery on his nose or something. So, which I knew he's in concussion protocol there for about a week too. So
Yeah, yeah.
that may have had something to do with it also.
That's definitely true. Now, before we jump off of
But,
this game and we jump into
but
the Georgia Mississippi State game, I want to give credit to one other guy in this, and that's Ken Seals, their quarterback at Vandy. I mean, he also threw for almost 320 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did make one mistake on the night, but that kid was lighting the world up there for Vandy. So
look,
they got a decent quarterback.
I gotta give credit to Ken Seals. That kid sitting there going against Florida, you know you're coming against a powerhouse, and he doesn't back down.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna be something special for Vandy over the next couple of years, and see how he progresses up and elevates his game.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and jump right into that Mississippi State at Georgia. And I think we can all finally say it. Georgia has finally got a quarterback on the board, and they finally do decide to come out and start JT Daniels. They do come out in the black jerseys against Mississippi State. I'll tell you this, though, credit to Mississippi State, too, for keeping this close because Georgia's been touted to have one of the most elite defenses in the SEC and in the country. That I don't believe is so the case of this one because Mississippi State's offense isn't necessarily terrible, but they're also not great. I actually had an argument with a guy that was saying all I did was I commented on something and said that I think that Florida's probably breathing a bit of a sigh of relief after seeing JT come out and kind of light the world on fire. I mean, he throws for 400 yards, 4 touchdowns on the night, going 28 for 38. So, I mean, had a great night. And I said a lot of Florida fans are probably breathing a sigh of relief that wasn't JT against them because I think Georgia beats Florida if JT is in. And a guy kept coming back at me. He was like, no, Florida, you know, they could have, if they didn't keep the foot on the pedal, Florida would have whooped them even more. And I'm thinking, no, Georgia was really only 2 scores away.
Nope.
And there were 2 wide open guys that the ball was dropped in, and also 2 that were overthrown. JT Daniels is a lot more accurate we've seen just in one game, and they want to say, well, it's Mississippi State. Okay, if you want to continue that argument, Mississippi State is technically the 3rd best defense in the SEC, behind only Texas A&M first and Georgia second, which that number is definitely going to change after this. But Mississippi State's defense isn't bad, and you can also say this. That Georgia was held. No. This is the mind-blowing number here. Georgia was held to a total of 8 rushing yards on the night. 8. That does come off of 21 yards that JT Daniels was sacked for. Zamir White was the rushing leader, 11 carries, 21 yards, no touchdowns on the ground, only 8 yards for Georgia's defense. So if JT Daniels doesn't throw like he does, Georgia doesn't score in this game. They maybe get a field goal in this game. And that's it, and get blown out by Mississippi State. So I do think that Florida was breathing a sigh of relief because JT Daniels would have hit those guys. And for the guy who was telling me that Dan Mullen took his foot off the pedal and tried to run the ball, well, that's not quite so true because why would Kyle Trask be throwing the ball into traffic, which could have been a pick 6 late in the game to put Georgia much, much closer in that. Nonetheless, I'm glad to see it for Georgia because they've got the guys out wide that can catch the ball. Clearly, George Pickens, he got 87 yards and a touchdown. Burton comes in, he leads it. Huge night, true freshman there, 197 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kieris Jackson also getting in on the action, 4 touches, 55 yards, and a touchdown on the night. So their offense looked really good. It finally was running, but the defense it's wild. It's almost like they played a gambling trick, and Georgia said, all right, if you give us a quarterback, we'll give you our defense and our run game. I mean, it just completely flipped the switch for them.
Yeah.
Now, I'm also going to give credit on the other side of the ball there at Mississippi State. Will Rogers, a true freshman, coming in. And Mississippi State only coming in with 49 guys, scholarship players. Now, 49. When that number, is at 53, the game could have been canceled for all they cared. But Mike Leach took his team to Athens anyway. limping in and almost took the Dogs out. Will Rogers goes 41 for 52. He also throws for almost 400 yards at 336. Has only one touchdown on the night, and they only ran for 22 yards. So it was nothing but an air battle back and forth. And Georgia luckily won the air battle in the end, having JT back there. But I don't think if JT is back there, I think if they trotted a Stetson or a DeJuan out there, I don't think this game is nearly as close. I think Mississippi State routs them. How are you feeling as far as Georgia finally getting a quarterback situation filled in before I kind of make some comments on what I was hearing out of that Georgia sideline after the game?
I wish Kirby would just come out and say that he was injured. That's the one thing I get tired of hearing. Everybody wants to know why it takes so long to get JT in here.
I'll answer that.
Will not comment, or none of the coaches will. So, but besides that, it's good to see JT finally get out there and play after almost a little over a year. I think it's like 15 months since his last game he played in.
Yeah.
So it's good to finally see him get out there and play. And if you don't have that experience and JT back in the backfield, you don't win this game.
Nope.
Not against Mike Leach.
Nope.
Mississippi State's defense was, I hate to say it, was almost embarrassing Georgia's offensive line there for a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Just blowing up holes. There were several plays I saw where Mississippi State linemen were getting back in the backfield, but they weren't getting untouched.
Yeah.
At the same time now, having that experience in JT, having that scrambling ability did help. Because if you have Stetson or DeJuan back there, you have several more sacks.
Well, it was actually quite the opposite, because I think if you had Stetson or if you had DeJuan in there, I think that's when they moved. Georgia and Mississippi State completely flipped the script on their defenses. Mississippi State would drop 3 and rush 8 sometimes. They would drop, 5 and put 6 in the box. They were completely competent on stopping the run game, which they clearly did. And they were definitely penetrating that O-line for sure. But the thing that you saw in this was JT Daniels is not a scrambler, but he was not afraid to stay in the pocket as long as he could and hit those guys and target them deep downfield. Like you say, definitely credit to Mississippi State's defense for getting in there, but it burned them on the back end because Georgia was finally able to get to the air well enough. Yes, they did stop the run game, but the air ended up beating them in the end, and that O-line was able to hold just long enough for JT to find the hole to step up in the pocket and throw, or he would back up a couple of feet, but he never had to run and go anywhere. Whereas if you had a Stetson or a DeJuan in there, I think they're definitely taking off running, trying to find a hole. Maybe something comes out of it. You probably get some more rushing yards in this game for sure, but more than likely you get a lot more mistakes in this one as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The biggest thing about it is, and you saw that whenever they played Kentucky, when Georgia played Kentucky, that whenever they were forced to throw with Stetson, once he got rattled, it kind of stayed on his shoulder for a little bit. He couldn't drop it off instantly. And that's where that experience comes into place. But Georgia did, I hate to say it, but they struggled, won this one.
Oh, yeah.
They squeaked it out. And
definitely a struggle win. I'll let you guy that Alabama guy who calls it every week. I still like watching his videos. They're funny to me. Definitely a struggle win for Georgia. But I will say this. Back to what I was gonna tell you there at the end. They did come out. JT did say that he felt fine after the Arkansas game. He was not cleared for that Arkansas opener, but he felt like he was ready after that. And his dad said that he went to the open scrimmage. I think it was like mid-season maybe. May have been earlier than that. And he said he knows that in that it was actually closed scrimmage, that he watched JT and could tell that he was not ready, that his arm strength wasn't quite there, that he wasn't able to throw and get into a throw and have that velocity on a ball like he normally does. So he knew it beforehand, and Coach finally did come out, and Kirby said, listen, he has just not been to this caliber that he is right now. Had he been there 2 weeks ago when they were playing Florida, this guy would have been in the game. He just was not ready. He didn't have that leg strength, and that knee was not built up and strengthened enough to be able to put velocity on a pass, to put it deep and get it to where you need to get it. So they did finally come out and answer those questions. It made it look kind of tough with JT saying, I was ready, but at the same time, I've got to stick with and believe what Coach is saying. Not all of it's going to be true. We know a lot of it's coach talk, but I got to stick with the belief that he just wasn't quite ready. I mean, otherwise, Kirby's going to put everybody he can out there to win a game. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have taken Stetson out when he threw the interception after the shoulder injury against Florida and put DeJuan in. That wouldn't have happened. If loyalty was a thing, he would have kept him there. Obviously, he's hurting. But JT just wasn't quite to that point. Now, do I wish he was? Absolutely. But clearly he wasn't. He is now, so he should be able to show out for the rest of the season. And then the other side of it, like I was talking about a minute ago on defense, Georgia was doing the opposite. Georgia was dropping 8, leaving 3 in the box, not rushing the passer, which we saw when Georgia rushed Kyle Trask against Florida. It flustered him a bit. He would make mistakes. He wasn't nearly as accurate, but Georgia went away from that. They stopped rushing. They started falling back, and Kyle Trask was able to beat them. Well, they did the same thing here. And this one, Georgia was falling so back.
You can't.
Georgia was falling so far back, I think part of it was because the wheel route that they got beat so bad on against Florida, but they were falling so far back, they left guys 10 yards shy. And, they just basically ate up yards on short passes. Nothing really came except for one explosive long yard pass down the right side. But outside of that, I mean, it was dump-off passes that just ate up yards each and every time, and they kept the defense on the field multiple times, multiple third down plays that Georgia should have been off the field. They weren't.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Georgia is they're certainly playing zone coverage. Well, when you play zone coverage, you're giving them 5 yards. Well, Ole Miss saw or Mississippi State saw that. If you're going to give us this yards, fine, we'll take it. And that's why this game went into the halftime tied up 17 all.
Yep.
We went to the fourth quarter tied up 21 all or 24 all because Georgia was just giving yardage away to Mississippi State. I'm like, you cannot do that. You will. It's almost really, I hate to say it, but it's a miracle Georgia won this game.
Yeah.
Because of them giving up that much yardage to Mississippi State.
No doubt.
But
like I said, if
nonetheless,
JT's
Georgia
not back
did
there
squeak
doing
out
as
the
good as he
win.
does, that don't happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we mentioned, Georgia does squeak out the win 31-24, and they still there. Barely, but they still there. But let's go ahead and jump down to the Tennessee-Auburn game real quick. This game was, from what I saw, it was kind of interesting. Honestly, I was watching the Mississippi State-Georgia game just because it looked a whole lot more interesting than the Tennessee-Auburn game did at one point. But let's just like Tennessee-Auburn went to the halftime, set up 10 all, and then after that, Auburn started playing a dime game, scoring 10 in the third and 10 in the fourth, and getting the victory there, 30-17. Bo Nix does go 17 for 26 on the night, 220 yards and a touchdown. Leading rushers, Eric Gray from Tennessee with 22 carries, 173 yards and a touchdown himself. And the leading receiver there for Auburn, Anthony Swartz, 3 receptions, 84 yards and a touchdown. But I will say, I think the 7 grace for Auburn was a huge pick by
Smoke Monday.
I just lost his name. Smoke Monday.
Yep.
If you don't have that pick, I think that game kind of changed a little bit. I mean, Auburn had 165 yards rushing all night, where Tennessee had 222 yards rushing, and that's with -6 yards or -12 yards from Jimmy Galloway and Jarrett Quantino. So,
you mean Joey Galloway? I get what you're saying, but yeah, like you said, I was gonna say shout out to Smoke Monday on the 100 yard.
No, it's Jimmy Galloway. Look, check their roster because on here it says Jimmy Galloway.
Really, somebody's got something wrong in it.
Joey Galloway's the guy on SEC Network. No, Joey Galloway's the one that's on Game Day.
Joey's at Wait a minute. Joey is at Kentucky, right? He left Auburn and went to Kentucky.
Joey Galloway. No. Fool. Joey Galloway's the guy who's a sports analysis for SEC Network.
All right, tell me who I'm thinking of that transferred to Kentucky from Auburn. What's his name?
You're thinking
Gatewood. Joey Gatewood.
Gatewood.
That's
Joey
it. That's
Gatewood.
it. That's it. Sorry. Anyways, well, back to it. I was gonna say shout out to Smoke Monday on the 100-yard pick six there late in the third quarter, but Auburn gets 27 unanswered points from the start of the second quarter, basically to the end of the fourth quarter. I mean, they're down 10-0 with just under 14 minutes to play. Boom, jump all the way down to 4 minutes left in the game, and all of a sudden Auburn's up 27-10 before Tennessee ever even scores again, making it 27-17 there at 4 minutes to play with a minute and a half to go. Auburn kicks the field goal, puts it away 30-17. So great game for Auburn as far as fighting back with a little bit of adversity there at the beginning, and just see if they can continue to roll. Hopefully that defense can continue to start stricken down and make somebody pay. But I do think you're right. If Smoke doesn't get that pick six there and take it to the house for 100 yards, it is a bit of a different game there because Tennessee was driving.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest difference in that game because we've all seen Auburn's stadium whenever they get an interception. That place goes crazy like they just won a championship.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that helped them drive, and put the pressure on Tennessee. But at the same time, Tennessee had 222 yards rushing and 242 through the air. And with the Iron Bowl coming up this weekend, and you just seen what Alabama's offense did to Kentucky, it's going to be interesting to watch. And on the flip side of that coin, Tank Bigsby there in the backfield only had 3 carries on the night for 24 yards. Sean Shivers, 14 carries and 65 yards, and DJ Williams, 11 for 66 yards. So they were changing out the running back quite often, looks like, and they were trying to rely on that passing game, which did pretty good, had 220 yards through the air and 165 on the ground. It's building up to be really interesting, and like we mentioned earlier, or talked about a little bit earlier, both of these coaches, I think, came to this game kind of on the hot seat. I think Gus Malzahn's seat's getting a little bit cooler, but I don't think he's in the safe zone yet. On the flip side of that, I think Jeremy Pruitt may be looking for another job here soon. I just ain't been impressed with him at Tennessee in the past few years. It's just been a while since they've done anything, and they don't sit one of their coaches down to Alabama, so we may end up getting another one back.
I was going to say, I think even when Butch Jones came in, it was the same thing. Tennessee showed signs of life, and then just nothing to it. I tell you what, let's jump down south and get a little closer down to the bayou down there in LSU and Arkansas, a game that I definitely thought was going to go the other way. I had a lot of faith in Arkansas. I will say Arkansas and the referees, they just don't get along. Arkansas can't get the calls when they need it. They should have beat Auburn. They should have beat Ole Miss. We're dipped on that. They would have had them at a different record right here, and this one as well. Officiating was terrible.
Pittman, dude.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. Officiating in this game was terrible.
I feel so bad for Sam Pittman, dude. Because I think there was, 3 plays that could have been overturned?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we talked.
There was a touchdown that should have been overturned.
Yeah, let's also talk about the targeting call where the guy just lights the guy up with his shoulder and gets tossed.
Oh, yeah.
What in the world?
So, okay, on that play, that one I do not agree with on targeting, but at the same time, due to their bubble rules on targeting, because he was a defenseless receiver, because he just caught the ball, he didn't have time to actually set and turn. That's why they call targeting, because of him being hit like he was, but it was not targeting to most of the nation.
Yeah, but I mean that's
now,
so difficult. Think about being the defender.
Either way.
Yeah, think about being the defender though. It's like what do you want me to do? Do you want me to just when he comes? Do you want me to just hug him and lay down with him, or are we playing hard-nosed football?
That's the thing is, if you look at this game, Arkansas had a lead. At what point was it?
It's early in the fourth quarter. They were up by 4.
It is early in the fourth. They were up 24-20. Arkansas had this game won, and then you had those calls that were like, dude, poor Arkansas. Like, they should need to play they should play that game in a protest just because of the horrible refereeing in that game. Now,
I'll tell you, once we get to our
Arkansas.
picks, I'm really gonna wish I'd waited at least a day or two before taking the line, because the line ended up moving to LSU by 1, and I would have taken Arkansas by 1.
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't know. Well, I guess it really didn't end up mattering because it was LSU by 2.5, and they still won by 3.
It's a 3-point spread.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah. So looking at it, Felipe Franks. Go ahead. Sorry.
I don't do it, but it don't matter.
No. Roll on with it. You're good.
Okay. I'll just start with LSU and that true freshman there at T.J. Finland.
Yeah, go ahead.
Going 27 for 42 on the night. 271 passes and 2 touchdowns. Your leading rusher for LSU is Tyrone Davis-Price with 24 carries and 104 yards. On the flip side of that, Arkansas's leading passer was Felipe Franks, went 17 for 26 on the night with 339 yards. And he's also the leading rusher with 14 carries for 43 yards. So Arkansas gave LSU a handful and everything they could handle. And apparently it was just enough. And enough luck with the referees, the LSU pulled it out. Because apparently LSU was trying to see how many times they could put the ball on the ground, because they had 5 fumbles on the night. They lost one of them, but they put that ball on the turf 5 times.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that it was only one time that they lost it. Unfortunately, obviously the ball didn't bounce, complete and total pun intended. Ball didn't bounce the way it needed to for Arkansas to land on it. Because at the end of the night, this is a crazy stat. First of all, before the game, you look at last year, and this spread is like 44 LSU's way. And coming into this one, when it first opened, Arkansas was leading. As far as the spread goes, I think Arkansas was a favorite by 1.5. In the end, it ends up on the other side. But look at this. Here's a couple numbers for you. Total yards, 419 for LSU. Arkansas led it with 443 total yards. Here was the biggest thing on here. Time of possession. LSU milked the clock the entire game. They had the ball for 41 minutes, 43 seconds. 41 minutes and 43 seconds. Arkansas only had the ball 18 minutes and 17 seconds. Arkansas basically just had the ball a little bit more than 1 quarter. So LSU basically had the ball 3/4 of the game, and it still came down to a field goal in the end.
And still squeaked out a win.
Yeah, it came down to a field goal. Arkansas had the game won and had the opportunity at the end to win it, and it just, sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think with this game and even the Alabama game, because Kentucky, I think, if I remember correctly, I think they actually had the time possession in that game too. Time possession now doesn't really mean a whole lot like it used to.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't do anything with that time possession, you're just wasting you're wasting time. Nope. Kentucky had it for 28 minutes. Alabama had it for 31. But still, even with time possession going like it does nowadays, if you don't capitalize when you have that much time, then there's an issue. Now, I will say, if Arkansas did take their time and kind of milk that clock a little bit more, they win this game. I honestly think Arkansas pulls this out and LSU does not get the victory.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. They're paying the refs, so apparently. So.
Yeah, again, unfortunately for Arkansas,
this is ridiculous.
Because Arkansas, they had every opportunity to get it done, and it's hard to beat one team and the refs.
Could not pull it out.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, let's jump down for time's sake. Jump into Missouri and South Carolina in a game that Missouri had the game won just about the entire time. except for they couldn't score again after the first half. They look like Georgia has in the season, and all of a sudden, here comes South Carolina surging back in the third quarter, and then I say surging back, they get a field goal because it's only 17-0 going into the third quarter, or at the half, either way you want to look at it after a 20-yard field goal there at the buzzer. Fourth quarter, though, just a tick under 5 minutes to go, and South Carolina makes it a one-score game, 17-10. Has an opportunity to go down and tie the game up late, and quarterback there throws an interception. That one ends 17-10. But this game was completely boring. Every time I looked over at it, Missouri was up 17-0 until just a little while into the third quarter, and then I saw a field goal. I'm like 17-3. Okay, well Missouri still got this one won. Lo and behold, the Georgia game ends. I'm like, well, let me tick over here and just see what's going on. And South Carolina decides to make a game of it. It was boring until the end. To be able to watch and see what happened there at the end, unfortunately, like I say, South Carolina falls 17-10 as Mike Bobo's interim head coach gig starts off with a loss there at home against Missouri.
Yeah, and South Carolina or Missouri's head coach is out due to the coronavirus. He did test positive. So that's why he was not there. But even that still, they should have played. Yeah, South Carolina didn't have their head coach either, but hey, gives you an idea what to look forward to. I think South Carolina's next game is against Georgia next week, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so
yep,
you got some good matchups.
You get a night game there in Columbia.
And South Carolina went through two quarterbacks. Luke Dottie went 14 for 23 with 130 yards, and then Colin Hill went 6 for 10 with 39 yards. So, if I'm not mistaken, I think Colin Hill is either injured or got injured. That's why he didn't play as much as I think most of us would have liked to see.
Yeah, like I say, my eyes were peeled a little bit more on that tight game there in Mississippi State, Georgia, so I wasn't able to watch this entire one to know exactly what it was there that happened as far as that side goes. I do know, looking at Connor Bazelak, he goes 21-33, 203 yards, one touchdown, makes a mistake on the night with one interception. Larry Roundtree, the third, though, goes 21 carries, 58 yards for a touchdown on the ground there from Missouri. That's pretty much that's really about all there is to shake out on that one. Cody, if you're good with it, unless you got anything else on it, let's take a quick break before we jump into our picks.
All right.
All right, guys, welcome back. Hope you guys enjoyed our quick little break there. Again, check out Anchor, our sponsors there, if you guys want to maybe start your own podcast or what have you. But without further ado, Cody, let's go ahead and jump into our picks from the weekend. Like I said, I think MadDawg, I didn't get his picks in before we started the podcast. What was that? Thursday, I guess. Yeah, Thursday's episode, which normally you get on Friday. Didn't get his picks in, and I didn't put it up visually, but I do have his picks that he did send to me after it all that I'll update for you guys on the screen. Nonetheless, I'm throw it on the screen here for you guys listening. And Cody, you'll finally be able to see this.
Throw it on the screen for the guys listening. If they can see it while they're listening on podcast, that is impressive.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for getting me all squared away there. Pretty good weekend overall for each of us. Cody goes Cody actually goes 5-1 on the night. He picks Florida for the win. Obviously, that happened.
Stupid referees.
The only thing that he got wrong was picking Arkansas, which I think both of us did. Served him up a loss there. Obviously, picks Alabama to win. A lot tighter one there than I anticipated that you would have put Alabama in Kentucky game.
Look, after the way they played Kentucky, I thought the defense for Kentucky was going to be a little bit better than what it was. And I knew we had a little bit of issues Alabama had a little bit of issues on defense. But apparently, they fixed all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, evidently so. Well, moving on, he does pick Auburn for the win. That happens. Georgia for the win. That happens. South Carolina for the loss. And Missouri for the win. I put Mizzou and Missouri together. Oh, jeez. All right, anyway.
Missouri?
Moving on with it. So
there's a 15th team for the SEC, apparently.
Goes 5-1. He is now 24-7 on the year. Looking at my side, I decided, like I said, and from here on out, I'm gonna swap it up because otherwise we would have looked identical in our picks, and I got tired of seeing that, so I decided to do it a little bit differently. I took Florida to win by 31.5. That didn't happen, so I lost. Took LSU, or excuse me, I took Arkansas in the points 2.5. That didn't happen because LSU beat them. So I started off 0-2, but hey, I won out there on. Took Alabama in the over 58. Alabama did that by themselves, so got the win. Just picked the score in Auburn, Tennessee. Obviously, the score was 30-17. Nonetheless, I was only off by 6 points. That's still a win. Took Georgia in the over 44.5. Got that one. And I took South Carolina, Missouri under 57 and got that one as well. So I end up going 4-2 on the night. That moves me to 22-9. I put MadDawgs picks on the weekend. He took LSU, Auburn, Georgia, and Alabama to win, and all four of them did. So he turned his season completely around. He was 6-7. Coming into this one, goes 4-0 on the week, putting him at 10-7. So a lot better week for him as far as that goes. And without further ado, we're going to jump into our Crimson Dog of the Week, and it's truly going to be one of those Crimson Dog kind of picks here. Cody, go ahead and hit me with who your pick. Yeah. This is one that's actually going to line up the way that we thought it would.
I'm about to say, usually it's completely different teams, but this time it's actually is your Crimson and Dogs of the Week. Your Crimson Dogs for the week for me, I got to go with Devontae Smith breaking the SEC record with 33 touchdowns. Now, 9 receptions, 144 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the night. You just got to give credit to this guy because he's a really talented player. And from listening to the interviews that him and Nick Saban did after the game, and it's not just on the field that he's talented off the field too. So congratulations to Devontae Smith for breaking that record and for being our Crimson Dog of the Week.
Yeah, like you said, congratulations up to him. Breaking an SEC record like that's really huge, and especially to have a breakout game like he did. I say a breakout game. He's always having breakout games and putting up a ton of yards, 144. 2 touchdowns. Mine is going to be the dog side of the Crimson Dog, and it is going to be Georgia's quarterback, JT Daniels. First quarterback in Georgia, excuse me, let me start completely over. First quarterback since 2013 in Aaron Murray for Georgia to throw for at least 400 yards in a game. 401 is what he touches, 4 touchdowns. It's a great game, and good there by Georgia to finally have themselves a quarterback in the midst. So that's our Crimson Dogs of the weekend. I'm going to pop this back up on the screen for you guys again. Tuesday, this is what we got to look forward to this week. Tuesday, you got the first playoff rankings will be released at 7 o'clock. So you guys keep your ears and eyes peeled out for that one. And we will bring it to you just as quickly as we find anything out. Just keep an eye on the socials. I'll tell you what, Cody, why don't we go ahead and just hit on some of the kind of just key games around the country, because there were a couple of big ones too that have playoff implications.
Yeah, I mean, there's a real big one. One we were looking at watching with the Indiana-Ohio State game. Number 9 Indiana taking on number 3 Ohio State. And that game was a lot closer than we would like to think. Ohio State squeaked out 42-35 on that victory there. And
yeah, the
surprised you're leading. Huh?
Yeah, I was going to say the thing that blew me away about that was Ohio State had that game in the bag. I mean, I think they were up at one point 28-7 going into the half. And they also, I believe, went up. I think they were up at one point like 35-14 or 35-7. And here comes Indiana.
They were up 42.
Quarter.
They were up 42-21.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, so
had
the game won, and Indiana just served us back there in the second half.
Yeah, and surprise, your leading passer is not.
Yeah, Justin Fields.
What's that dude's name?
Justin Fields didn't look that great. He threw, 3 interceptions on the night?
Yeah, Michael Phoenix Jr. for Indiana is actually your leading performer for that game. Went 27 for 51 passes, 491 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, shout out to Michael Penix Jr. there, almost throwing 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then on the ground, another just cool name here, Master Teague.
Master Teague
for Ohio State.
The third.
Yeah,
the third.
170 yards, 2 touchdowns on the night. And then Freifogel, what a name there for Indiana, 218 yards reception, 3 touchdowns from the arm of Michael Penix Jr. There. So definitely a huge game. Like we said, the other one in the Big Ten that was big with the playoff implications was Wisconsin and
The
Northwestern.
upset.
As is. Completely flipping the rankings, too. Northwestern
Yeah.
upsets them 17-7. They score in the first quarter and don't score again, and Northwestern's defense just choked them out.
Yeah, that's going to be your Big Ten playoff game. Right there. It's going to be Northwestern and Ohio State, I believe. So it's going to be a good one. Northwestern defense looks really good.
Yeah, that's going to be the telltale sign is if Northwestern's defense can stand up against that Ohio State offense, because Ohio State's offense is not that elite this year.
No. And I think that's the biggest thing, too. They got Justin Fields, who's a great quarterback, but at the same time, you got to have other options for your quarterback to go. And they just did not have it. But anywho, another team to kind of keep an eye on there in the Big 12 is a team that demolished Kansas State. Iowa State wins that one 45-0. Went up at halftime 35-0. So
yeah,
Ohio State kind of.
I have to apologize to Iowa State in this one because you weren't there for this, but I did say they needed to watch out for Kansas State because Kansas State is that team that can come in there and upset a team. I mean, they've done it against Oklahoma, but look, Iowa State said nope. Brock Purdy comes in there, throws for 230 yards, 3 touchdowns. Clearly so. And Breece Hall there running the ball, 135 yards, 2 touchdowns for them. One of the other ones that I had also keyed up on was that watch out for UCF because UCF could ruin Cincinnati's dream there in the American. And they almost did. Cincinnati comes back and wins it by a field goal, 36-33.
That game was close.
Yeah, I mean, so was another one, UCLA and Oregon. Oregon almost lost their opportunity as UCLA comes surging back there in the fourth quarter to bring it to within a field goal, and it unfortunately falls. So that was another one, 38-35 there. Oregon, Coastal Carolina, and App State, that was another one. I knew App State was going to be a tough team to play and that they could also make it a big test there for Coastal. And luckily for Coastal, they were able to surge there in the late second half to put up, let's see, that's 25 total points to end up beating App State 34-23.
Yeah, and another team that kind of made their redemption game there in Oklahoma taking on Oklahoma State. Getting the victory 41-13, kind of making a statement on that one.
Yeah, they showed up and showed out.
So, yeah, there's some good games this past weekend. Utah got their first game, and it wasn't pretty. USC handled them 33-17. And number 21, Liberty, falls to NC State 15-14.
What a strange sound. What a strange number there. And then one thing that I think you were going to talk about earlier was that number 4 Clemson and Florida State game just hours before kickoff got postponed.
So I was trying to figure out what was going on with this because apparently Clemson was saying that Florida State was scared and they postponed it. They postponed it due to the fact that a Clemson player now was showing signs and ended up testing positive before the game.
Yep.
And from what I understand now, it was the medical directors that made that decision, not the coaches.
No, that was the thing that everybody wanted to argue about was, Clemson did say, and their coaching staff, they did say, listen, we can wait. We can play this later in the day if you guys want. We can play this tomorrow on Sunday. It doesn't matter. Well, FSU's medical advisors, they were like, I don't care about when. If you have a player that's showing symptoms and all of a sudden tests positive, which he did, now let's start doing the contact tracing and see just how much it diminishes Clemson's team. Then we'll see if you guys truly do want to play tomorrow. But that's not the way it works as far as this virus and everything goes.
And the thing is Clemson and Dabo Swinney needs to be ashamed of himself because he did this too. The players and the coaching are sitting there calling out FSU because of that. That is not sportsmanlike in any way. Trevor Lawrence knows better than that. He had to sit out for 2 weeks because of his negative tested.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he never showed signs, but he tested positive and had to sit out for 2 weeks. You understand this. If a team tests positive right before a game and the player's been there all week, what's the likelihood that you don't have another 5, 6 players that catch it like that?
Oh,
And they
yeah.
go down to Florida, and then Florida has an outbreak.
No,
I mean, Florida State's looking out for their players, and I do not blame Florida State one bit. And Clemson can say all they want to about FSU being scared. Alabama can say the same thing about Clemson. Florida could say the same thing about LSU. I mean, or LSU can say the same thing about Florida. I mean, they don't do this because they're scared of playing each other. They do it every year. It's nothing new.
yeah. I mean,
They're
even
trying to protect their. Go ahead.
I mean, even Mike Norvell before the game, he came out with a mask and everything on the sideline and did a kind of an interview there with the TV producers, and he said, "Listen, we were ready to play this game. We were ready to come in and play the game, and all medical advisors came together, and they had a meeting and decided that it just wasn't best for us to play, and rightfully so. I mean, if you go into this game, one guy tests positive before the game, and y'all go ahead and play, and all of a sudden both teams get ravished by this virus, and y'all have to cancel and postpone games for the next 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, why not go ahead and say, all right, unfortunately, we're going to miss out on this one. We'll try to make it up at the end of the season, as opposed to playing it and possibly losing out on multiple weeks. So really, in the end, it was better that FSU didn't play them.
Yeah, I mean, I I put a pin on Clemson on this one. They should know better than this. You're a top team in the country. Show better sportsmanship, especially when you have a Heisman candidate. Because honestly, this does not look good.
No. Unfortunately, it didn't. Well, Cody, do you have anything else before we kind of wrap this thing up? Because I'm pretty wiped on what we got.
One more thing I want to talk about real quick.
Right.
Just because I meant to talk about it at the beginning, but I know we're running short on time.
Oh, you're good.
Is the coaching candidates for South Carolina. Now, I know the ESPN Game Day, they did it on Saturday morning. They mentioned a few guys. Well, I found a news article from South Carolina, and they put a few more names in there that are really interesting to kind of look at. But here, without further ado, you don't have this list, so
Go
unfortunately.
ahead. No, you're good. The Cody segment.
Oh yeah, this is gonna go horrible. Once and only episode, guys. So if you don't want to listen, just cut it off now. We don't blame you. Anyways, continuing on. One of the guys that they're talking about who could be a big recruit for South Carolina, just because of his connection with the not athletic director, the head guy over South Carolina now, is the Army's head coach in Jeff Monken. Now, this is not set in stone. This is just, talk about just because the old commander for the Army school went to South Carolina. So he has that connection there. So he could go there. So that one's kind of one that they're talking about could go.
Yeah, I had heard that name.
I'll say one for last just because of the irony. I'll explain the irony later.
I already know who you're talking about, but go ahead.
We'll go to him last. Anyways, another team, a team we just had to talk about, Clemson. There's two people from Clemson that are talking about that could end up going, or either one could go, depending on how it goes. The offensive coordinator, Tony Elliott, or defense coordinator, Brett Venables. I probably said that wrong.
No, you said it right.
But either one
sounded good.
Sounds good to me. Either one of those could be predicted to go there too, just because they've been around head coaching for, they had Davis Swinney, who's been there for a little while. They kind of know, and they gives them an opportunity to move up to, I'll say, a decent program when they want to be. Besides that, another big name that they said that if he wants it, he could have it. But I think because of all the issues he's had in the past, he may not take it, is Liberty's head coach, the old head coach from, I want to say Ole Miss, Hugh Freeze. That's another one they're talking about. It's a real big possibility. If he wants it, he could have it. Other words, not really sure yet. Another one they're talking about is Oklahoma's coach and Shane Beamer. Is another possibility. Just because of the same thing with him being around the coaching that he's been around, it gives him he could take the experience he's taken to South Carolina, and it fit that program, I think, pretty well.
Yeah.
Another coach, my Louisiana Raging Cajuns, head coach Billy Napier is another option they're talking about that could go. And this one's actually coming from the news article I found from South Carolina. So this was a little bit more, they had connections through the college, so there's a little bit more than we know. And then another one is Jamie Chadwell from Coastal Carolina, who's actually undefeated right now with his team. And we've seen this in the past, where a coach takes a team undefeated in a little conference, goes to a bigger conference, and it's a bust. And if you don't know who I'm referring to, Frost.
Scott
Frost. Scott Frost. Which one of those two? Because, he was at UCF, who went undefeated national champs, went to Nebraska, and he ain't done a whole lot up there. So that's kind of one to keep out. And then the last one I'm going to name, just because of the irony of the school he's associated with and the tradition they've had in the past 5 years of putting coaches out, is Alabama's offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian. So
yeah, you put out a lot of big names, a few of which that I definitely heard. One of them I don't think is going to happen is just that the defensive coordinator there for Clemson. I don't see why Brent would leave. I mean, he's got such a good gig right now.
Well, you never know. Little things happen, dude.
That's true. Plenty of stuff can happen, that's for sure. Well, we've pretty much eaten up a whole lot more time than I want to, but unless you got anything, it seemed like you might have one other thing you want.
There's 2 of us on there.
I know.
No, it's only because there's 2 of us.
You got anything else that you want
to add
guys?
Right
at the end?
Yeah. As always, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SEC Talk 20. Comment, like, post.
There it is.
What?
It didn't want to change.
Look, I'm not used to seeing this, okay? It's throwing me off.
That's all right. You get to see now.
Anyways,
you get to see what's going on.
Yeah, I don't like it as much. Anyways, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SEC Talk 20. Follow us on every major. I guess we're on every major podcasting app. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if you want to tell us a joke, guys, we'll take jokes, do something. You can comment messages on there or email us if you prefer that at sctalk20@gmail.com. Besides that, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, we may be checking in on you guys. Cody and I'll talk. We may check in on you guys. I don't know, maybe Tuesday. Maybe we do a Tuesday night episode as they're doing the college football playoff thing. I don't know, because obviously Thursday, when we normally do our episode there, is Thanksgiving, which we're not going to do on Thanksgiving night.
Turkey Day.
We may push it and do it Wednesday. I don't know. We're going to see. We'll see what shakes out with it and what we decide to do. I'm not 100% just yet, but we'll let you guys know.
We ain't never 100% on this.
No, that's for sure. But like I said, we'll let you guys know. So other than that, y'all just keep an eye out. If you're subscribed, great. If you're not, hit that subscribe button on YouTube or whatever you're listening on podcast-wise. That way you will be the first to get the episode when it drops. Other than that, though, Cody, it's SEC Talk, your host Holden and Cody. We out. We'll check in with you guys later.
Have a good one.